I thought I'd try and make a video on how it is that people come into counterfeit Christianity. And I'm going to try and tell this as plainly as possible, since you cannot give the truth to a Gnostic in the form of knowledge, because all of their knowledge has been turned upside down, so that they can no longer see or hear the way they're supposed to see and hear. And I'm going to try and do this from my own testimony. So it is the case that I know the affliction that you have, because I myself was afflicted. So in the West in particular, we are born and raised ostensibly as Christians, and we parade the label Christian around, and yet in England particularly you can do this without ever having attended a church, except for, let's say, a marriage or a funeral, and perhaps a christening if you you know people that still christen their children. It doesn't really happen here anymore, but that's a reason you might attend a church. But you'll call yourself Christian, though you'll likely have never opened the Bible. And your general view of God is one of disdain. People don't really understand the nature of God, and most people that call themselves Christians really have this impression of God, which is the one that's given to them by the Gnostics, because the Gnostics control all of the world. They disseminate their own worldview, which is just an image. You know, these are the things you can't talk to Gnostics about, because they have this doctrine of that confuses everything. But the Gnostics disseminate their image onto the people, and that image will have them thinking that God is some kind of tyrant, and they'll only go so far with that, and then they'll kind of stop thinking about it, and they'll go back to whatever their worldly concerns are. So they never really think about the nature of God beyond that tyrant that they were given by the Gnostics, that the Gnostics call the demiurge. But so you're a Christian, and you have this distrust of the church, which is rightly so, because the church is in these days, it's phony, it's a farce. It's a place to gather, and it's a place to sit and be brainwashed with scriptures without ever really understanding them. And most of the churches are just collecting money to give to Gnostic fraternities. That's the truth of it. But so you call yourself Christian, though you have absolutely no Christianity, no semblance of Christ in you. And then what happens is you know, if you're not totally indoctrinated, And when I say indoctrinated, I don't apply a negative connotation to the word doctrine. But if you are indoctrinated by the Gnostic Christianity, then you are indoctrinated by a lie, because the Gnostics feed lies to the public. And then they have this knowledge for themselves which puffs them up, which they believe is the truth. But by the very nature that they have this dual system of maintaining a a hidden truth for themselves while feeding lies to the public, the fact that they think that is righteous is what makes their knowledge destitute, and therefore they, in fact, are the liars. So they, it's blind guides that keep others out of heaven. All of these things that were spoken by Jesus are true. The Gnostics are the blind guides who stand between others. They do not go in, nor do they let others enter. So people have no knowledge of any of this stuff, and then they have a distrust of the church. And for the ones that are not completely indoctrinated, they will grow up calling themselves either atheists or agnostics. And agnostic is really a fake, made up thing. Because people used to call themselves atheists, but it had this negative connotation attached to it. And because people tend to say things like, "Oh my God," or "God help me," and things like this, it dissuades people from calling themselves atheists, because they feel like they're lying. But then there's this other made up term called agnostic, which sits in the middle of atheism and Christianity. People tend to call themselves that. It's that lukewarm thing. Everyone's consumed by this lukewarm Christianity. And for those types of people, if they grow up, if they're inquisitive people and they start to look at conspiracy theories, and they start to look at spirituality, all of this spirituality, quote spirituality, is just new age Luciferian spirits, which are capturing the hearts and minds of people and leading them into falsehood. And it's very popular at the moment. Lots of all different groups and denominations, but it's in a pyramid, and it all goes one place, which is the Gnostics, the fraternities, the Masons, the Rothschilds. It all goes to the same satanic font. And people get into spirituality, and there's all these liars that are saying that it's Christian, and they push paganism, which is Mystery Babylon. Okay, they push that with one side, and then on the other they call it Christian. So they mix everything together, and they desecrate their own. I mean, it's a desecration of their own stupid religion, but they've also desecrated Christianity, and they desecrate everything. And it's because they are naive. They're naive and stupid. They don't understand the things they talk about, because they are fed them by liars. And these liars will tell them things like, "Oh, the truth is within you, and you just need to look inside." And that very their very act of being told that is almost like being killed, where immediately you then go around in a circle of listening to liars, but then those liars telling you that all the truth's within you, but you're never actually learning anything. You're just doing a repetitive cycle of ignorance. But these Gnostics and these spiritual people, they get puffed up, and they're told that they're so loving and caring, and they do all these compromises, and they bastardize the real thing because they don't understand the real thing, and they don't understand that they're being misled either, which is why they go around in circles. But in the process of all this, they replace the real teachings with their own fake ones. But they are adamant, absolutely self-assured that they are doing the teachings of Christ, and yet they cannot see that they have completely turned them on their head, and that they follow Jezebel with her fake religion and the whore of Babylon. And they think they are so wise and so smart, but they are the most deceived, the most foolish. They really are. And you cannot tell them because they think they are so wise and so smart. But they have not built their house on the rock. I'm telling you. It is built on shifting sands, and it's worldly. And when all these Gnostics are pulled from their high places, they will have to go with them, because they will find their mystery religion. They will find their mystery religion being torn down, so they will have to follow it where it goes, and they will stand at the shores, weeping, saying, "Mystery Babylon, how great were your riches." And these fake Christians have been using the excuse of persecution as part of their narrative of true Christians being persecuted by fake Christians. Well, that's true, but they have the story backwards. And they are in fact the persecutors of the real thing. And yet in their madness there are still a number of people who will not take kindly to their madness, as they are inwardly ferocious wolves, but outwardly dress in the clothing of sheep. There are some who still discern these people, and when they see that wolf inside, they will say something about it, and yet these Gnostics will say that this is evidence of their persecution, but no, in fact it was only their madness which was persecuted. Since we have every means at our disposal to research and to know the words of God, it's ever more telling of those who are stuck in the lie. But it's because you're listening to liars who claim to be what they are not. And you are having liars change and dictate the words to you instead of just going to the source for yourselves and studying. And you listen to liars who claim to be Christians but are Luciferians, who puff you up and give you delusions and make you think you are wise when you are not, when you are following a liar. There will be no reward in any of this, except the judgment which will come, and you will be told, "Away from me, you sinners." This will be your reward. And it will only be at the very final moments that you will understand your error, because you will no longer be able to run from it. It will run from you. But you will have no righteousness in its place, no comforter. You will be left alone. Romans 16. I appeal to you, brothers, to watch out for those who cause divisions and create obstacles contrary to the doctrine that you have been taught. Avoid them, for such persons do not serve our Lord Christ, but their own appetites, and by smooth talk and flattery they deceive the hearts of the naive. For your obedience is known to all, so that I rejoice over you. But I want you to be wise as to what is good and innocent as to what is evil. The God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you.